Khana Hargrove is a human wizard. After finding a dead body, she began researching and translating the spellbook she found on them, until she began to learn the ways of magic. After seeing what seemed like the multiverse expand before her and its inevitable end, Khana is troubled, yet curious. In this video, I'll be going over how to build and play Khana in most tabletop role-playing games, but more specifically, D&D. Our topics will be as follows: personality, class and race, ability scores, proficiencies and feats, and gear. As always, there are many different ways that you can play Khana. After her first contact with the orb, you can have her follow any sort of path you like. The best plan is always to adopt what happened to Khana into your campaign setting, and then go from there. What you will see/hear in this video are just suggestions and my original vision for the character. Feel free to adapt and overcome how you see fit. Part 1. Personality. Up first is talking about Khana's personality, her likes and dislikes, her fears, her wants, and how she treats people. Khana has always been a loner, preferring to get work done on her own rather than asking for help. To new people, she seems very uninterested in talking, and to her friends, if and when she makes any, she's quiet and will often make her own decisions without consulting anyone. Another big thing about Khana is that she's very focused. She has a one-track mind which only allows her to focus on one thing at a time, and she will focus on that problem or idea until it is seen through to its end. Much like her research in the story, she can find herself losing track of time easily when something worthy of her focus shows up. A new spell scroll often means no sleep for Khana. A big part of Khana's story is how she saw these threads in this void. To put it simply, Khana has PTSD and will often get flashbacks to this experience. When these flashbacks occur, she'll often become panicked and have trouble focusing. Some DMs may choose to implement this in-game with rolls, kind of like wild magic surges, but remember that this should be a moment for role-playing and allowing the character to shine, not an excuse to make your character or player do worse at things. Another note, be careful putting your players in that headspace. PTSD is a very real thing, and it might trigger someone. As always, approach with caution, be respectful, and everything should be alright at the table. Part 2. Class and race. As I said in the beginning, Khana is, in my original telling of the story, a human wizard. The idea that she really is just a normal person is important to her story. Being a wizard is also almost non-negotiable, as it wouldn't make much sense for her portent abilities and how she learned magic if she was anything else. Maybe a warlock would work, but that's not important right now. When choosing between variant humans versus normal human rules, I usually pick the variant human because I like having access to more skill proficiencies and feats. But normal humans having a +1 to all abilities is really nice sometimes, especially if your ability rolls aren't that amazing. When it comes to wizards, it shouldn't come as a surprise that Khana's subclass is the School of Divination. The dimension with all the threads was very much about seeing people's future, so having access to portent and other abilities kinda makes the most sense. As for what spells to prioritize when selecting new ones at higher levels or copying into her spellbook from scrolls, I think that Khana should prioritize spells that have high versatility, that can be used to get herself out of any sticky situation. Like I said before, Khana is very independent, so try your best to have spells that can do it all. That way she has evidence why she doesn't really need other people. Part 3. Ability scores. As always, instead of giving exact values for your ability scores, as there are many different ways of calculating them, I'll just give each ability a ranking from 1 to 6 based on how important they are for the character's success. This should help when you slot in your rolls, calculate your point buy, etc. First up and most important is intelligence. Intelligence allows wizards to do all the things they want to do. Spells hit more often and do more damage with high intelligence, so it just needs to be priority number 1. Khana is also a library owner with a love of research, so it really does just make sense. As a primary caster, Khana will not have access to wearing much, if any, armor. Because of this, your second priority for ability scores should be dexterity. Any boost to your AC is very good for you. That way you can stay alive and be ready to cast spells for your team. It also adds to your initiative, which lets you go first and act before the enemies so you can do your cool spells. For your next priority, I recommend Wisdom. Wisdom has a lot to do with different skills that Khana wants to be good at. Perception is really important, especially if you need to detect somebody hiding. Plus, she's owned a library for quite a while and is probably pretty wise because of it. Priority number 4 is a tie between Charisma and Constitution. Both of these skills will be useful for Khana. Constitution will add HP to your pool, keep you alive for longer, and Charisma will help you get out of situations without, explosions happening. Both are really great skills to have, but they're not high enough priority to focus on. For me, the tie goes to Constitution. In last place, as it almost always is with wizards, is Strength. In 99% of situations, Khana will be using cantrips or spell slots to do anything she wants to do. Because of this, Strength is just not an important ability for her. Using a cantrip will almost always do more damage for Khana than swinging a weapon, so it's your last priority. And if you're using point buy, that's your dump stat. Part 4, Proficiencies and Feats. Now that we've gotten to Part 4, Proficiencies and Feats, let's take a look at our proficiencies that Khana gets from being a wizard. As a wizard, you get to choose 2 proficiencies from Arcana, History, Insight, Investigation, Medicine, and Religion. For Khana, I would choose Arcana and Investigation. Both of these skills are very important for Khana as a character. She has studied Arcana extensively at this point, and really does have an investigative mindset. If you're playing Variant Human like me, your ability score increases should go to Intelligence and Dexterity. You also get to choose any skill you want to gain proficiency in, so for this choice I would choose either History or Perception. History kind of goes best with Khana's story as a librarian, but I think Perception will probably be strongest in the game, if that's what you're into. As I always do with feats, I'll give you 2 options that make the most sense. That way, if you ever get the option to choose a feat, you have some good options to choose from. First up is Meta Magic Adept. This feat will allow you to customize your spells like sorcerers do and make them even better at utility, damage, or really anything in between. Your second option is Spell Sniper. This feat essentially gives you another cantrip as well as doubling your spell's ranges, so this is a very useful tool to engage enemies from a far distance, even if they're hiding. Part 5, Gear. Our last part of building Khana is talking about her gear. Her starting gear, gear she'll want to pick up in the future, the whole shebang. For starting gear, there are only a few choices to make. First, you can choose between a quarterstaff or a dagger. Here, I would make the dagger. It doesn't really make much sense for her to have a quarterstaff, and daggers are useful as tools even if you don't use them as weapons. Next is a choice between a component pouch or an arcane focus. Here, the obvious choice is the arcane focus, since Khana's arcane focus is the orb that she found on the dead body. The last choice for starting gear is a scholar's pack or an explorer's pack. And while I usually go for the explorer's pack, most people in your party will probably have those tools, and you won't be that good at using them, so I recommend taking the scholar's pack. In the future, there really aren't any specific items that Khana wants to buy, just in general, if there are items or clothes that help her do what she does best, try your best to get them. Also, as always, stock up on potions and helpful tools like that. Khana also gets a spellbook, and as it is an important part for all wizards, it's a good idea to give you a description. Khana's spellbook used to be a pristine, deep royal purple colored book, but now, since it is the target of her fixation with magic and a potential trigger for her PTSD, it is a lot more worn than any other book Khana has owned before. And that's about it for how to build Khana in D&D. As always, if there are questions or any specific choices that I didn't lay out here, and you want to know more about them, those questions will most likely be answered by the character sheets in the description below, which should start at level 1 and go all the way to level 5. If you have questions past level 5, those choices should be tailored to the story of your campaign so far, instead of her backstory. Any questions about her personality or things like that, go ahead and ask them in the comments below and I'll do my best to respond quickly. Feel free to use Khana as an NPC, your own character, as a villain, whatever floats your boat. For now, this meeting of the Lore Keepers Guild will be adjourned. Until the next time I see you all, be on the lookout for stories worth listening to, and send any you find to me in the comments below. Until next time, I'm your Guildmaster, and remember, ad astra per fabulous.